2014. That was a long time ago. But I do want to say thank you to Melanie for letting me do this and finding me funny. I always knew somebody else would. So, this is my first time at pole class. I admit it, I hate exercising. Oh, hate is a strong word. I loathe exercising. If it involves physical fitness of any kind, I've already lost interest and made a beeline for the nearest McDonald's. But I had just suckered my unsuspecting then boyfriend into proposing, and with the wedding only 10 months away, I figured had to do something with my unsightly muffin top. It's either find a gown that complemented it, or work it off via some sort of kinesthetic regime. While I hadn't totally abandoned the former, it was looking more and more like I was going to have to exercise. My sister had mentioned she was taking a pole dance fitness class up where she lives in New York, and loving it. Still sounded like sweat-inducing movement, which I was not fond. But the idea of learning how to move around a shiny brass pole in a manner that men would find sexy did appeal to me. I found Studio Goddess Pole Fitness here in Nashville and signed up for my first class. I was on my way to sensual stardom. There was just one problem. I have a severe coordination disorder. It's pretty bad, and I don't like to talk about it very often. I think I'm the only person who has ever managed to severely sprain her ankle by tripping over a water ski. I once had the wind knocked out of me during tap class, and when I was 12, my softball coach pulled me out of a game by throwing 1 strike and 8 batters. And I probably could have lived through the humiliation of that, except the coach was my father. So what in the world made me think I could excel at something as physically demanding as pole dancing is beyond me. My first pole class started off with simple yoga-style warm-ups. I figured I could handle that. I mean, how hard could something involving a relaxation pose really be? But after about 30 minutes of contorting my body into poses affectionately known as the cow, the cat, and my personal favorite, the downward-facing dog, my abs were shaking worse than John Edwards' popularity. I actually didn't know I had abs until then. I was concentrating so hard on not falling on my face that Nicole, who I think didn't make it here, there she is, had to tell me to keep breathing. Just when I thought my legs would collapse beneath me from the chair pose, which is a complete misnomer. Sitting in chair is way easier. Divine intervention struck. It was time to move on to the poles. Everyone starts off learning the same basic spins. The first one was called the fireman, which, unlike those deceptively named yoga poses, means exactly what you think it would. You spin around and down the pole like a fireman in a firehouse. Strippers just aren't as clever as yoga enthusiasts. But I mastered the fireman fairly easily, and my grandfather would have been proud. He was a fireman, not a regular to gentleman's club. It was the next several spins where my coordination disability started to hold me back. After a couple rounds of spins known as the Tinkerbell and the Firefly, I was so dizzy I probably would have failed a sobriety test. When I moved on to the do-si-do, which involves kicking my leg out and around the pole while holding on with only one hand, I lost my grip and nearly flew right out the glass window. It's becoming painfully clear that I probably should have just audited the class. I forged ahead though. After a few weeks, I was ready to move on to my first invert. Inverting means you somehow kick your feet over your head while still clinging to the pole for dear life. The prize for not crashing down on your skull is that you don't crush your skull. The only problem is you then have to hang upside down and panic while trying to use the strength of your legs to hold yourself onto the pole, which would be all well and good if I'd had any strength in my legs or anywhere else. You're supposed to look like a bat, but instead of looking like a cool Twilight character, I slid slowly down the pole, burning off any skin I had left on my inner thighs. And landing on my head. I managed not to crush my skull, but I'm still not convinced I didn't receive a very sexy concussion. Despite my disability and its danger to my health, I have stuck with pole fitness. It's now 2.5 years later, and while I'm still the furthest thing from sexy, I amaze myself in the moves I'm capable of doing on the pole. Not sure the regulation, but they are awe-striking nonetheless. And my father, he couldn't be prouder. He now has not one, but 2 pole dancer daughters. Few of my girlfriends have expressed an interest in taking a class, and even more of my guy pals have asked about auditing a couple. You don't get this far in the pole fitness world, however, unless you are committed to the craft. Making my way to advanced status was going to take more than just weekly classes. It was going to take some major homework. So I did what any aspiring pole girl would do. I installed a pole in my home. By this point, I had succeeded in my goal of not resembling a certain baked good previously mentioned on my wedding day. Yay, me. But being married also meant I couldn't just exercise home additions without first running it by my husband. I wasn't too worried though. How many husbands would complain that their wives wanted to put up a pole in their home? Turns out, one. When I came home with my pole, the first thing out of my husband's mouth was, "That is not going in our bedroom." This would have resulted in a major fight had he not explained it was solely based on the fear I would fly out the second-story window. And then I just realized he knew me very well. I promised him I would install it on the ground floor, so in the event I did fly out the window, I wouldn't have far to fall. He was still pretty reluctant, but after consulting some of his buddies about it, he concluded it was better to let me put up the pole than have them all think he was gay. While I haven't done a thorough inspection of the entire neighborhood, I'm pretty sure I'm the first resident to have a pole installed in their living room. We're still determining whether or not that raises the value of our home or just the opposite. But it did make for a rather interesting conversation at the first house party. Most of my friends and family know about my semi-erotic pastime, but I got a lot of raised eyebrows from the neighbors as they walked past what they had to assumed was a stripper pole or, yeah, a stripper pole. Naturally, their first thought was, "Oh my God, we have a stripper living on our street." For some, that was a good thought, and for others, not so much. But after showing off a few complex moves without falling flat on my face, they were so impressed they forgot all about thinking I was a stripper. None of them have been over since, though. Well, I don't make a career out of my pole moves. They have helped me in the career I do have. I have a pretty dangerous job. I teach high school. And pole allows me a healthy outlet for the stress of dealing with 150 teenagers on a daily basis. I did learn the hard way, however, not to post pictures of me on Facebook. Obviously, I'm smart enough to set my profile private, but that didn't stop one tech-savvy student from sneaking onto my page. Rumors of my moonlight job spread through that high school faster than herpes. I was called into the principal's office and questioned about my risque photos. I explained to her and my students that it was an exercise class. I used the experience as a means to teach my class about deductive reasoning. Had I been a true stripper, I wouldn't be wearing clothing, and I would be making far more money than as a teacher. Rumors stopped, but for some reason, enrollment in my class has skyrocketed. Taking pole fitness has been a life-changing experience for me. I've learned some valuable things about myself, like that I'm a much stronger person inside and out than I thought I was. And I've also learned that it's possible to bruise your vagina. Thank you.